Hello everyone and welcome to a new Sound Design Monday. It's your host Sen's World, and today we're going to be creating this lead. Before we get started, I would like to ask everyone to please subscribe. Hopefully this is the sound you're looking for. It's going to be a big room breakdown sound. All the presets from all my tutorials are going to be posted on my Facebook page in the downloads tab. All you have to do is like my page and you can download all the presets you want. I also have a sound bank on there with 31 sounds created by me. I'm currently at 1,700 likes. At 2,000 likes, I'm going to be releasing another sound bank, and this one's going to include some MIDI files and some kick drums, along with some sounds from Massive and Silent 1. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So pretty much what we're going to be creating here is going to be a super saw wave. Now, almost every song that's a big room house song is going to be using a super saw wave. Generally, what a lot of people like to do sometimes as well is change one of the saw waves, like the top end of the saw, the one that's going to be an octave up, into a square wave, and it gives it more of another type of melodic feel to it. So let's get started. So here we are in part A. What we're going to do is we're going to lower the polyphony down to 2. Now for oscillator A1, we're going to have the octave down by 1. So this is going to be a lower frequency oscillator. We're going to be putting the volume the same. 6 voices. It's going to be a saw wave, V-trig off, stereo all the way up, pan to the left by negative 0.10. Usually when you're creating sounds and you're going to be using up all the oscillators, it's good to kind of pan some of the sounds a little. It makes it sound a lot bigger. We're going to detune this oscillator by 5.38. And all detuning is going to do is it's going to change the sound. It's going to detune it a little. It's going to give it more movement, and it's going to sound a lot better, a little bit more harmonic, okay? Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into amp envelope A. This is where the sound comes out of. Our attack is going to be super low. Let's just leave it like around 0.06. Our decay is going to be all the way up to 10. Our sustain all the way up to 10, and we're going to have a high release as well. The high release is going to be set at 4.33. Now the only important thing here to note is that we do have the release up on this sound, even though it's going to be it's not going to be a pad, and the reason for that is because this is meant to be used on the breakdown. So what's going to happen is when we put the release up, the sound is going to stick a while longer. So what's going to happen is the attack, like generally I say in my tutorials, is going to decide how fast the sound comes out of the amp. The release is going to decide how fast the sound disappears. So the release is going to decide how fast this track is going to go back to 0 just in this in VST, and that's not bringing in the reverb and all that. So that's what's going on here. So next we're going to oscillator B1. We're going to have another saw wave with 5 voices. We're going to leave this alone. Volume all the way up again. No phasing. Detuning at 5.33. Stereo all the way up. And we're not going to pan this one. We want this one to be in the center since it's an odd number voices. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into filter A, and we're going to put the cutoff at 21.341.28 or 4 o'clock all the way up. No resonance. We're going to put the drive a little bit up. All that's going to do is it's going to make the sound a little bit louder. 24 dB low pass filter. Like I always explain, the last thing you'll hear if you close the filter is the lows. With the high pass, it's the opposite, and pretty much the whole purpose of filters is to get rid of the higher frequencies. But in this case, we're going to have a really arc cutoff all the way up, so it's not really going to matter much. Next thing we can do is go into filter control, which is going to be our master filter for part A and part B. For the big knob, the cutoff, we're going to put it at 21.341.28 hertz as well, or 4 o'clock. A little bit of resonance, 1.06, and a little bit of key track, 2.05, okay? So once we have that here, now we can go on to part B. In part B, we are going to be applying some white noise. The reason for that is because it makes the sound huger. It covers a more frequency range, and usually white noise tends to go pretty wide, so the sound is going to be sounding loud and very big. So if you ever want to make your sound huge and you're creating your own sounds, add some white noise. If you're using a preset, add some white noise. It'll usually fix it, especially if you play with the reverb right. So here we have oscillator B1. It's going to be the white noise with the volume down to 2.86. Like I always say, you can hear higher frequencies at lower volumes better than lower frequencies. Now, Here we are in our phase, 0.00 degrees. We're going to detune the white noise by 3.02. Stereo 9.94. Just put it all the way up to 10. 3 voices, retrig off. No padding for the white noise. Now for amp envelope B, we're going to have the same configuration with the release just a little bit lower at 3.32. Attack 0.00. Now oscillator B1, we're going to be applying another saw wave, this time with an octave up +1. Volume at 10. Phase at 0.00, detuning at 4.86. Like you've seen, we've been kind of changing the detuning a little bit because we want to kind of change little variations. Because if you make everything simple and in just one, like straight at 5 for detuning, what's going to happen is your sound's going to sound really dull. So little changes make great sounds. Stereo 9.90 as well. And we're not panning this at all. Okay, and retrig off for this as well. Now, retrig, all it's going to do is make sure everything starts together at the same time, so it starts at the same. And usually, like, I give that definition, so people are like, okay, so what the hell was the point of a retrig? Well, the whole point of it is, honestly, is knowing how it's going to sound. And usually when you put the retrig on, it keeps that oscillator in the center. If you were to take the retrig off, then it starts having more of a stereo feel. But when you have all the retrigs on, usually that's why whenever I make basses, I leave it on, is because it tends to keep it in mono. It sounds like it's in mono. That's not what retrig does, but it sounds like it, and all that matters is how it's going to sound. So now we're going to go into filter B, BA, input select, another low pass filter, but this one's going to be at 12 dB. We're going to put the filter B cutoff at 4 o'clock or 16.052 2.42 hertz. No resonance as well. Filter B drive 1.52. That's just going to make it louder. Now here we're at filter control. Our cutoff is going to be set at 2134, 1.28 hertz, or again 4 o'clock. Sorry, we already went to filter control, my bad. So once we have all that, we should start getting into the mod envelope A, which is going to be a knob turner. I always say LFOs and envelopes are knob turners, and like again, great sounds are going to have some modulation involved, even if it is through LFO or mod. And generally, when people are creating sounds, generally they're like, okay, why doesn't it sound like this sound or this sound? And usually the thing that's missing is some effects or some modulation to certain knobs. For this sound, we're going to be using cutoff modulation. For cutoff AB, we're going to be using the envelope route, which we're going to be using the properties of ADSR in comparison to using an LFO, which is going to be using a rate and a wave. Okay, so the attack is going to be set to 0.05. That's how fast the knob is going to turn. This little black knob is going to decide how much it's going to be turned by, and we're going to put it all the way up to 10. So obviously we're going to open the crap out of this filter. Now our decay is going to be set at 5.10, and you want to be really exact with these because these change the sound by just decimals. If you were to change the decimals a bit down or up, it would completely change the sound. Now here in the sustain we have 5.92, and our release 0.60. Okay, once we have that, then pretty much we are set to go. We're going to go into our EQ section. We're going to be using a 1-pole EQ mode. For EQ bass, 5.87 dB. EQ bass frequency, 82.49 hertz. The EQ treble, 8.31 dB. And the EQ treble frequency, 2946.18 hertz. Now we're going to reverb, and like I said, whenever you're creating these sounds with white noise, you want to make sure the reverb is top notch. You want to make sure it's sounding correct, or else you're going to ruin the sound. So here we're going to be applying a reverb, dry and wet 55.97. Let's bring it up a little to 57.39% though. The pre-delay for the reverb, so before the reverb starts, it's going to be 86.67 milliseconds. The dampness of it is going to be at 1.11. The size of the room, this is an algorithm the effect's going to use to kind of emulate having the sound in the room. It's 5.34. The width of the reverb at 99.98%. Obviously, I don't need to explain this. It's just like sort of the stereo field of the reverb, just the reverb itself, the diffusion. And the dry and wet is 57.39. And we're going to add a little bit of compression. So we're going to be adding a ratio of 2.51 to 1. So for every sound, every dB going or 2.51, 1 dB is going to come out. So that's pretty much what the comp ratio is saying. The threshold is going to be set at negative 13.43 dB. The attack of the compressor, how fast the compressor works, 36.07 milliseconds. And the release is going to be set at around 83.60 milliseconds. So how fast the reverb stops working. Next, we're going to go into our mixer, and we're just going to bring mix B up a little to 6.15 dB. We're going to leave mix A at 4.83, and we're going to lower the master to 2.82. The last thing we want to do, and this is where it's gonna change the sound is you want to add some portamento, which I like to call legato. Pretty much all it's gonna do is it's gonna make the notes slur instead of kind of just go da da da. It's gonna go it's really hard to explain. Usually you use this with a lot of sustained leads, but for this one, since the melody is gonna be really really fast, it's nice to have some legato, some portamento on there to kind of make it smooth rather than hard transitions from note to note. So once we have all that, we should be getting the desired result. Put it 1 octave higher. Okay guys, so I hope this tutorial was helpful. Hopefully it shows you how to create those big supersaws. Like always, make sure to like my page, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button on this video, comment. Any requests, send them to my Facebook page. I read all of them and I take most of them into consideration. Sometimes I can't make all of them just because there's not enough time. But sometimes I give the presets to the people, so hopefully if you ask for a request, I'll probably have it and I can send it to you. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. This has been Sen's World Sound Design episode 20, I believe, or 21, and I'll see you guys next week.